Welcome to the Books of Titans podcast, hosted by Eric Rostad. Join him on his 15-year journey through the immortal books. He'll share what he's learning, explore profound ideas across time and cultures, and share the one thing he always hopes to remember from each immortal book.
Well, this is my fourth episode covering the Bible. So this year I'm reading straight through the Bible between January and February. I just start on page 1 and I go to the end of the Bible, Genesis to Revelation. And this year I'm including the Apocrypha in that. And so the versions of the Bible that I'm reading this year are broken up into 5 different volumes. Right now I'm in volume 3, and that one is called The Writings. And this past week I finished volume 2, which is called The Latter Prophets. So in this episode I'm going to cover some books from both of those volumes. So it will be the books of Ezekiel, the 12 minor prophets, and then part of the Psalms. So I finished volume 2 last week, The Latter Prophets, and I finished it on Monday. And I first read this particular volume, which is the Bibliotheca version of the Bible. And I first read it in 2023, and I'm a big nerd, and I track my reading time. And I was very surprised to see that I came within 3 minutes of the time it took me to read this volume between 2023 and then reading it again this year. So in 2023, I read it and it took 14 hours and 27 minutes. This time it took 14 hours and 30 minutes. So just 3 minutes more. I find that stuff fascinating. Just like because I'm writing notes in the back, drinking coffee while, pouring coffee, like just all the different things that would come into the total amount of time I'm reading, and for it just to be a 3-minute difference was really interesting to me. But yeah, so that one took 14 and a half hours to get through. That one had the 3 major prophets of Jeremiah, Isaiah, and Ezekiel, and then the 12 minor prophets. I'm now reading volume 3 of the Bible, The Writings, and this contains the following books of the Bible. It starts with the Psalms, and then it goes into Proverbs, the book of Job, Song of Songs, or Song of Solomon, the book of Ruth, Lamentations, Ecclesiastes, the book of Esther, the book of Daniel, Ezra, Nehemiah, and the book of Chronicles. And this is a little different order than the Bible that I grew up with. For instance, Ruth would usually come after Judges, and then Chronicles would be after Kings. The minor prophets would be at the very end of the Old Testament, but here they show up in volume 2 in the minor prophets section. So it's kind of fun just reading them in a different order. Chronicles being right after Kings it's almost like you're seeing the same thing again that are very similar things to what you've just seen in Kings. So having them split up like this, I've read a few versions of the Bible where they're split up like this, is kind of interesting just to kind of split Kings and Chronicles with a bunch of stuff in the middle. So in this episode, I want to share a few things that stuck out in my reading from just this past week. But quick, I want to give just a progress update, because I am trying to read through the entire Bible and Apocrypha between January and February of this year. So that's 59 days total. And then here's where I'm at. So there's 2,823 total pages in these 5 volumes. Right now, I'm recording this on the morning of February 5th, so it's a Thursday. I am 44 pages in. So I've read 1,252 of those 2,823 pages. That is 44% of the total, and yet time-wise, we are 61% into the 2 months. So I still have a bit of catching up to do. And where I'm at right now is I've been averaging 35 pages per day. I need to average 48 over the 2 months. But since I haven't been averaging 48, I now need to read 68 pages per day in order to finish these 5 volumes of the Bible by February 28th. I don't know if I'll hit that. I'm trying to hit that just because I want to start my spring semester of the great books on March 1st. And so I'm trying to finish this up by then. If not, I'll just go into a few days in March, but I really am trying to finish this up here. So I want to cover some themes and overarching ideas from this past week of reading, and I'm just going to combine those things. In the last few episodes, I've split up kind of top level overarching ideas and then just things that stuck out. I'm just going to kind of combine all of them in this part right here. So first off, I was really struck this year by the three of the major prophets, and those are Jeremiah, Isaiah and Ezekiel. And this past week, I put up that meme where Tiger Woods is talking to John Daly, and Tiger Woods is dressed really nicely. They're at St. Andrews Golf Course in Scotland, and John Daly's like in this colorful outfit, and he's smoking a cigarette, and it's just kind of like it's almost like this like corporate person talking to like this wild man. And so I put that photo up, and on Tiger Woods, I put Jeremiah and Isaiah, and then on John Daly, I put Ezekiel, because you get to Ezekiel, and I want to read some of the first parts of it here. It's so funny. I mean, the prophets are so interesting anyway, but then Ezekiel kind of takes it up another level, to where, and he hits you right at the beginning. So this is how the book of Ezekiel starts. And it came to pass in the 30th year, in the 4th month, on the 5th day of the month, as I was among the captives by the river Chebar, that the heavens were opened, and I saw visions of God. I'm going to skip a little bit ahead, and then he says, and I looked, and behold, a stormy wind came out of the north, a great cloud with a fire, enfolding itself in a brightness round about it. And out of its midst, it was like the look of glowing metal out of the midst of the fire. And out of its midst came the likeness of 4 living creatures. And this was their appearance. They had the likeness of a man, and each one had 4 faces, and each one of them had 4 wings. And then it goes on to describe these, which I think were cherubim. And but it's just so funny because it's like, I'm by this river in Babylon, and then all of a sudden the heavens opened up, and I saw visions of God. Right away, okay, this is going to be a little different than the books of Jeremiah and Isaiah. And you do have these glimpses of another realm in the book of Ezekiel. I just that was something that really stuck out this year. I also got confused when I was reading Ezekiel. Jeremiah and Isaiah, I can track pretty well. Ezekiel, I'm just kind of the whole time, I'm like, what in the world is going on here? In the very specific places that I get confused is with the talk of the house of Judah, the house of Israel, the children of Israel, and the land of Israel. And at this point, when Ezekiel's writing, there is the people of Israel, the house of Israel has been exiled. They've been exiled. Assyria came and attacked them. And so it doesn't exist. So when he's talking about the house of Israel, I just get confused because I don't know what he means by that, because they're not there. When he's talking about the house of Judah, that makes more sense because he's amongst the people from Judah. So, I can understand that, but then I don't know what he's talking about when he's talking about the house of Judah, the house of Israel, the children of Israel, and the land of Israel. And so I phoned a friend. I talked to Dr. Jason Staples this past week and just kind of asked him about that. And he's got 2 excellent books about that very topic. And so we discussed, and what he's saying is there is kind of this balance between where Ezekiel is perhaps talking about the future, and the future to where these things have not come to pass even now. They're still in the future, but some of the things were for that time as well, and so it is very confusing. But that helped just kind of delineate. Okay, maybe when he's talking about the house of Israel here, this is still for a future time that was not. It was not to be realized with amongst the people that he's talking to in Babylon there. So just that kind of struck me with Ezekiel. I was trying to figure it out, but it's just one of those things. Like every time I read, I do the read through of the Bible, these things just kind of make more and more sense. And so that's a fun thing. I just love when things stick out like this, though, and where I have questions and I try to write those questions in the margins. I try to let them sit, and I try to find the answers in other parts of the Bible. So from there, the minor prophets, I was just struck by how much they addressed the surrounding people. So they weren't talking about the people of Israel or the people of Judah. They were like Obadiah is writing about Edom. And then Jonah, he's called to go to the people of Nineveh in Assyria. And so it's so interesting. I just that's always kind of a shock to me, because I just assume, the prophets, they're the prophets to the people of Israel or the people of Judah, but and some of them are, but some of them are also talking about the surrounding peoples that are not of Israel. So that was interesting to me this year. There's these large themes throughout the prophets, and then even now as I'm in the Psalms, of restoration and returning. And as I mentioned last week, this is something that I'm tracking during this reading of the Bible. And I'm thinking about it really in terms, there's just so much division right now. There's so much division, especially amongst Christians. And I'm just kind of reading this with that lens of like, what would it take for there to be restoration? What would it take for there to be a returning of sorts where there would be unity amongst Christians today? And so it's just interesting kind of tracking that as I'm reading of what restoration looks like, what a returning looks like. Another thing that I'm just struck by is God in these books. As I'm reading the immortal books, as I'm reading some books about the Greek gods and about the Mesopotamian gods, there's just such a big difference here. Where the God that is being spoken about here is a God who pardons. It's a God who cares for the downtrodden. Wants to make sure that the poor, the destitute, the widows, and the orphans are taken care of. And it's just an incredible, like, just take a step back and think about that. Like, what, if you were to create a God or think of, like, what would a God be like, an all-powerful God? Would he just be like lightning bolts? Like, what would he be like? And here that just kind of flips everything. That wouldn't be my first thought of a God who pardons, a God who cares for the downtrodden. And it's just a really amazing thing when I take a step back and think about it in that way. Another thing that stuck out is just, the more I get into the Old Testament, the Hebrew Bible, I'm just fascinated by how much of what is in there is quoted in the New Testament. So like Jesus is quoting, just nonstop quoting parts from the Old Testament, whether it's Psalms or the prophets. Paul is the Apostle Paul as well. It's just the two are connected so closely, and people talk about the difference between the God of the Old Testament and the God of the New Testament. But there are just so many similarities, and that aspect of here's something that Jesus quotes directly. But then thinking of that too, and like, okay, if Jesus quoted that, here's the context of that quote in the Old Testament here. I think it's important to know that context of what's going on when that statement is made in the Old Testament, and then if Jesus is quoting that, what's the greater context of that verse that he has just quoted. Something that stuck out again is just the individual. So something I highlighted last week, just a question I have. You keep reading through the Bible, and there's this high level of the society as a whole, the people group as a whole, and they're like, the whole thing is going in a certain direction. And especially in the book of Kings, like, it's going in a really bad direction. And I'm wondering the whole time, like, what does it look like for an individual to not go that direction, to get outside of the way the society is going? And I think one of the answers to that is just the prophets, and that we have their writings, and that the prophets were going against the grain of the direction of the society. But just kind of like the larger question, was there anyone that was doing that? And over you see in the Bible, there's no one good, no one who is doing right. And that came up again in Psalm. So I want to read part of this Psalm. The fool has said in his heart, there is no God. They are corrupt. They have done abominable works. There is none who does good. Yahweh looked down from the heavens upon the children of men to see if there were any who understood, who sought after God. They have all gone aside. They have together become filthy. There is none who does good, no, not one. End quote. So again, just that, was anyone going against this? And just over and over, you see, no, not one. It's kind of discouraging, but I guess too, just to kind of think of that, of what would that look like for us to be completely against the grain of current society, and of the wrong direction of current society. Something that has been something I've been thinking about a lot this year during reading of the Bible. Another thing that comes up over and over in the Psalms is just that over the long haul, God protects the righteous. The wicked will not stand. That is something that shows up over and over. Another thing that shows up over and over in the Psalms is the joy in the law, joy in obedience to the law. The law is not presented as something that's a burden. It's something that is presented as a source of joy. And you just kind of look around and everything would shout the opposite of that. Again, in just kind of in our society, but the message in here is quite different. There's joy in obedience. There's joy in the law. Something tied to that, being struck about like how a God who pardons and cares for the downtrodden, is just how much God is involved in these scriptures as well. Like he hears the prayer of the people. It says in Psalms that he dwells in praise. So people giving praise to God, he dwells in that. He's near to those who fear him. There's just this deeply personal aspect. There's this deep involvement by God. I want to read one more part here from actually just one definition of Zion. Zion is mentioned over and over, and I love this definition of Zion. Out of Zion, the perfection of beauty. So Zion called the perfection of beauty. I thought that was cool. Righteousness and justice are the foundation of the throne of God. Again, kind of back to that theme of God who cares, a God who's involved. Righteousness and justice are the foundation of his throne. And again, just if you think of the gods at that time, whether Greek gods or gods from Mesopotamia, I would not say that righteousness and justice are the foundation. Maybe power, something else would be the foundation of those thrones. But the Psalms keep saying over and over, righteousness and justice are the foundation of his throne. Another part in the Psalms that says Joseph, when he was put into prison, it said his soul entered into the iron. So it's talking about the chains around his legs, and that his soul entered into those chains. It was just an incredible description. And then I just want to close out by reading this. And there's a lot going on in the world right now. With disclosures and all sorts of things. And it's just so easy to get, it's just devastating. And I just wanted to close out by reading this psalm, because that's been at the forefront of my mind as I've been reading through the Bible, but this offered some comfort. This is labeled as a Psalm of David. Hear my voice, O God, in my complaint. Preserve my life from fear of the enemy. Hide me from the secret counsel of evildoers, from the tumult of the workers of iniquity, who have whet their tongue like a sword and have aimed their arrows, even bitter words, that they may shoot in secret places at the perfect. Suddenly they shoot at him and do not fear. They encourage themselves in an evil purpose. They tell of hiding snares. They say, who will see them? They search out iniquities. We have accomplished a diligent search. And the inward thought and the heart of everyone are deep. But God will shoot at them. With an arrow suddenly shall they be wounded. So shall they be made to stumble, their own tongue being against them. All who see them shall wag the head, and all men shall fear, and they shall declare the work of God, and shall wisely consider of his doing. The righteous shall be glad in Yahweh, and shall take refuge in him, and all the upright in heart shall glory. That's going to do it for this episode. Thank you for listening. I will do a few more episodes as I'm closing out the reading through of the Bible here. I'd love to hear what you think. Maybe these are books that you have recently read and you got something different. I'd love to hear that. Maybe I got something incorrect. I would love to hear about that. Please respond on Substack. That's where I post these podcasts, and that's a great place just to get a conversation going about this episode. You can find more information about Books of Titans on Instagram or Twitter, just at Books of Titans. And I have a website, both at Books of Titans and at books.booksoftitans.com, that has all the podcast episodes, all my reading lists from each year, from 2017 through this year, and a number of other resources to help you find the best books and to create your own reading list. Well, I'll be back next week with another episode of Bible Reading Progress, and that will be update 5. This is update number 4. Thank you for listening. I'll be back next week. Until then, keep reading, keep learning, and keep listening. I'm out.